Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, guess what? We're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, you've heard me say before, these companies are fantastic. They are time savers. Many of them are money makers. They're companies that you should have working for you. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We'd like to say thank you to our good friends at Huddle. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, our parents love the streaming, but there's a whole lot more. Go to huddle.com, join the 100 million fans and users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon Creative takes it to a whole new level. Beacon is a content creation service, and they're going to take your stories, your history, your coaches, and turn them into compelling narratives that you can then post on social media, maybe on a Wall of Fame video board. I want you to reach out to John Townsend, and you can do that by emailing John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. It's a winning team that you should be a part of. Let's also say thanks to Home Campus. Scheduling, rosters, results, facility management. Home Campus does all these things and more. Does it better, does it faster than the other platforms. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? That one alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com for more information. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the modern marketing platform that makes it easy for any athletic department to look like they're Division I, look like they're pro. Gipper's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college athletic programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. And it's easy because of their thousands of professionally designed templates to promote your program in your colors, your logos, your brand. Create and share and schedule all your social media content through one simple platform, and that platform is Gipper. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank Booster Hub. Booster Hub is the #1 Booster Club software package. And things like sponsorship fees, meal fees, concession sales, everything can flow through their secure system. Volunteer signups, volunteer changes, you know it's going to happen. Everything stays secure. Nothing falls through the cracks. Go to boosterhub.com. Give your boosters the platform they need. Give them the platform they deserve. And that's boosterhub.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's degree through the Ohio program, but guess what? My assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And while they were earning their degrees, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We want to say thanks to Hometown. Hometown continues to be a leader for education-based athletics with their suite of solutions that includes things like, well, digital ticketing, of course. They're still the #1 digital ticketing provider. But how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising? The list just goes on and on. Whether you're a principal, an athletic director, even a head coach, Hometown is going to show you how to save time. They're going to show you how to save money, and they're going to show you how to bring your entire community together. You'll find it all at hometown.com. Check them out today. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, how about your parents? You're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that connects you with every single one of your stakeholders. That's athleticsurveys.com. And as with all of our sponsors, make sure you tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to Iowa today, and our guest is Michael Winker. Michael's got a tremendous background in athletics. He was a high school athletic and activities director. He is currently with the University of Iowa in their sport and recreation management program. I got to meet Mike a couple weeks ago when I was a speaker for the Iowa High School Athletic Director Association. I had a couple of really good conversations, asked him to come on the podcast, and he was gracious enough to do that. So, Michael Winker, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Jake, great to see you again, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, I'm glad we could carve this time out. Mike, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us your quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Michael Winker origin story?
Well, yeah, pretty typical. I grew up in the 1970s, early 1980s, so I'm on the older side probably of most of your guests, but had a great experience growing up. Great parents, great family, first of all. Went to a Catholic high school, and long story short, that's where I developed my love for athletics. When I was growing up, there really wasn't youth sports. There was Little League baseball. We played 7 or 8 games in the summer, once a week, wearing jeans and foam baseball hats. So that was it until seventh grade. But that's where I developed a real love for educational based activities in athletics was seventh and eighth grade, playing football with my buddies. Ended up, again, going to a parochial high school and a great experience there. Very fortunate. Was not a great athlete, but I learned at that time that, I'm not going to play in the NFL or be a Division I athlete. So how can I be involved in sports? And just because of a great locker room and friend relationship with coaches, with my brothers playing football and baseball, decided to get into coaching. And when at that time in the state of Iowa, you had to be a teacher to be a coach. So not real noble reasons on becoming a history major and secondary education minor. I knew I would enjoy teaching, but my focus was really, I want to coach football. I want to coach baseball. And that was the track that you had to take at that time. If there were any sport and recreation management programs, I certainly wasn't aware of them. That's been something that's really come on the last 20 years or so. So took the educational track and went to Mount Mercy University in Cedar Rapids, which is right up the hill from the school that I graduated from. And being in close proximity to my high school opened up doors for me to eventually, when I graduated, to teach at the school I actually graduated from.
Boy, so many similarities, and you're not old. I'm got a few years on you there. I want to go back. You mentioned, seventh and eighth grade. I want to go back even before that. I'm guessing because you kind of alluded to it. Backyard football, driveway basketball, and Little League. No organized sports. Were the adults present? I always tell the story. I'm sure it was similar for you. When I was a kid, especially in the summer, we got up in the morning, grabbed some breakfast, some cold cereal, got on our bikes, and we were gone the entire day. Our parents didn't know where we were. They probably didn't even care until those street lights came on at night and they were telling us to be home. Was that similar to you growing up in those days?
Yeah, very much so. Very middle class. We grew up across from Knowledge Park, which is a huge park in the center of Cedar Rapids on the northeast side of town. And grew up, playing with public and parochial school kids. We were all mixed together, all got along, even though a lot of my friends went to Cedar Rapids Kennedy, the public school in our district, and I went to Regis. But we played sports fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade up through high school. Baseball, when football started to become our thing, we'd play games in Knowledge Park, Kennedy versus Regis, depending on where you went to school. No coaches, no officials, and we'd play tackle football without pads and everything. And I think that's where I developed too. I kind of became, especially with the baseball group, the organizer, kind of the AD, the coach, and the official all wrapped into one, and really like that sense of giving a group of other kids some direction as to how we're going to do this. And that superseded, again, my athletic ability.
Yeah. No, I get very, very similar. I was kind of the organizer in our neighborhood, and the arbiter of rules and things like that. Wow, I'm having flashbacks. Let's go and jump up into your high school days. You played multiple sports. And did you ever have a coach at that time come up to you and say, Mike, you shouldn't be playing basketball. You should focus on baseball or something else? Was that a thing when you were in high school?
It was starting to be a thing at other schools. We saw other schools. We were a 3A school in a 4A classification system at the time. And we had two Hall of Fame coaches. Our football coach and our basketball coach ended up being in the Hall of Fame. Our basketball coach was an assistant football coach, which was very common because you had to be a teacher. We had a handful of coaches that coached all of the sports. And I think as a result of that, as a result of their backgrounds, they wanted us to play as many sports as possible. Even before that was an adage of multi-sport participation, that was, hey, you should play three or four sports. And Dick Breitbach, who was that head basketball coach, assistant football coach, I remember him telling kids at the time that he doesn't want his basketball players in the offseason just going to the gym and shoot. He wants them competing. Being in the batter's box, bottom of the seventh, with the 3-2 count and the bases loaded, that competition is going to make that young man a better basketball player than shooting in the gym on their own, even though that's important as well. Just we really had that emphasis of if we're going to have a quality program and a positive experience for our kids, play as many sports as possible. So that was kind of ingrained into us. It wasn't just lip service. It really was a model for the program back in the day.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I throw out there in some of my talks is we talk about the multi-sport athlete. As an AD, I'm a huge fan of the multi-sport coach. That's how I grew up. And I was at a big public high school, but we probably had, I'm probably exaggerating low, maybe 7 coaches that coached everything. The head
Right.
football coach was the head wrestling coach and helped out in track. Our varsity basketball coach was my freshman football coach. It just one example after another. As you left high school and you went on to college, was it already, for me, all I knew was I didn't want to work for a living, and so, oh, geez, I can still go to college. I can play football. I can run track. I wasn't even thinking career at that time. Were you thinking coaching and teaching right away in college, or did that come?
No, that came pretty early. I originally started as a PE major and had a one of my advisors at the time say, "You're going to have a hard time finding a job in this state because so many coaches are phys ed teachers because of the correlation having to be a teacher to be a coach." And really encouraged me. I knew I wasn't going to be an English teacher or a science or math. That only left history. And I really enjoyed social studies, the news, current events, American history. So he kind of encouraged me into sophomore year to major in history. And that I believe opened up a lot of doors much earlier than if I would have had the PE. Nothing against it, but again, the competition at that time encouraged me to make that switch. But I had a goal very early on. Most of my friends, were thinking about becoming doctors, attorneys, or in the business world. I was one of the few in my friend group that thought, what am I going to do? I love sports. How can I be involved in sports? My mentors, referring back to the coaches, were, besides my father, they were just great role models. And I thought that would just be so cool to be in a building to coach kids and to get paid for coaching 2 or 3 sports and teaching a subject that hopefully I would grow to love and grow to be have some ability to teach students the basics of U.S. history. So I knew early on that that's what I wanted to do, and it was so important for me to have those goals because in high school I was not a great student. I was the kid that's showing up to class not knowing that there was an exam or forgetting to bring my book. And by freshman, sophomore year of college, the organizational skills of having some success kicked in because I had that goal of if I want to be a teacher, if I want to be a coach, I'm going to have to get after it in the academic environment. So that was good to have that goal. Otherwise, I don't think I would have made it through college.
Mhm. Boy, again, a lot of similarities. I kind of decided I was going to go the education route at my junior year. But again, it started with coaching. Hey, you can get a job as a coach. Well, you have to be a teacher. I go, oh, okay, I guess. And I was that PE major, but my guidance counselor, college counselor at school said, if you take these two health education courses, you can get a health minor. And that's actually how I got my very first job, because I had that health minor. I could teach that health class. Wow, great memories. Let's go and take our first break. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Michael Winker. He's with the University of Iowa Sport and Recreation Management Program, also long stint as an athletic director, activities director in the state of Iowa. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame and Beacon Creative. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon Creative has taken it to a whole new level. Beacon is a content creation service, and they're going to take your stories, your history about your coaches, your kids, and turn those into compelling narratives that you can then post on social media, maybe on a Wall of Fame video board. I want you to reach out to John Townsend, and you can do that by emailing John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. It's a winning team that you should be part of. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches, I'm telling you, all of our coaches just love the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos. Our parents love the streaming, but there's a whole lot more. Go to huddle.com. Join the over 100 million fans and users and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. And as always, tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast, and our guest today, Mr. Michael Winker, University of Iowa. Mike, again, I had a chance to hear a little bit of your story, but share with our listeners, your journey post-college that took you back to your own high school, where you eventually became the athletic director.
Yeah, first of all, after I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a job the spring of graduation at a middle school in Cedar Rapids, and was hired to coach sophomore football, freshman girls basketball at Regis, but teach at the junior high. I did that 1 year. I survived. It was a great experience in terms of great professionals, great teachers, parents, and kids. But I also learned that mix of all of those was not for me, and ended up getting hired as a halftime teacher at Regis the next year. I so desperately wanted to teach high school that I took a huge pay cut that first year to go halftime, and did some side hustle type things to make up for that money, but taught 3 classes for a year. Next year, as we fast forward, was a full-time social studies teacher, coaching 3 sports, and did that for 5 or 6 years, and loved it. I coached sophomore football eventually as the head coach, and with some of my greatest memories, sophomore football in the Mississippi Valley Conference at that time was very high level football. You didn't have the pressure of varsity, so you could learn from your mistakes without maybe the criticism of the varsity level. And I look back at those years, in my mid to upper 20s, teaching, coaching. It was a great time. Eventually, our Hall of Fame football coach passed away, had a massive heart attack while I was teaching and coaching at the school. And our other Hall of Fame coach, who I mentioned earlier, our basketball coach, assistant football coach, he was the associate principal at that time. For the rest of that year, and maybe for one more year, he took on being the AD as well. After a year and a half, was just overwhelmed with coaching, associate, and being the AD. So they opened up the AD job internally. They didn't open it up externally because it was going to be a stipend. $10,000 to somebody who wanted to be the AD there. And I was probably at least the fourth, if not the fifth choice because of my age and experience. They tried to get the football coach at the time, a few other teachers and coaches who had administrative degrees to take the job, and none of them wanted it. So by default, I became the AD. I was in graduate school at the University of Iowa at the time, so that was good timing. But was hired at the age of 28, I believe, to be a halftime teacher, halftime athletic director, and was also coaching football. Continued that, gave up the other coaching duties. So I got thrown into the fire at a young age, still in grad school, raising a family, and while I took that job, the news came out that Regis and the other Catholic school in Cedar Rapids, LaSalle, were in the process of merging and building a new high school facility. So the timing, while I was young and inexperienced, was also good that I started thinking about, wow, when that new school opens, to be a full-time activities director, not just a half-time athletics director, was very intriguing.
Wow. Again, it's funny how things just kind of fall into place. As you were starting out, and again, you mentioned you're still in grad school. We always talk about, young coaches, young ADs, new ADs. You don't know what you don't know. As you were, yeah, as we all do, going through those first years, what were some things that you found out along the way, coaching or being an AD, that you didn't know?
Well, yeah, I thought, first of all, when I became the AD, that, wow, I don't have to teach as many classes. I can sit in my office and drink coffee and schedule a few games, hire a few officials. I had no understanding of basic roles and responsibilities of whether it be mentoring coaches, not just hiring coaches, but mentoring and being available to them. But the ins and outs, the openness to criticism by running an efficient program where officials are showing up for games and buses are going to the right school. So didn't know all of the ins and outs of that, but knew that I didn't think I wanted to be a high school teacher forever. I liked the experience, but I knew I wasn't going to be a lifer there. So part of it was, again, not very noble. I don't know if I want to teach 5 or 6 classes for the next 30 years. What else can I do? Associate principal, activities director. So I think I was kind of pulled or pushed away or pulled away, however you want to look at it, and looking at other opportunities in education. And it happened much earlier than I thought. As you mentioned, I was just in the early stages of graduate school, but by having a death in your community, in your high school, was traumatic for everybody. And, those circumstances opened up both short-term and potentially long-term opportunities for me. But I honestly, to wrap that up, I didn't know what I was getting into at that time, Jake. No idea.
As you were making that transition into the AD world, I like to call it coming to the other side of the desk, was there any, I guess, emotional challenge at no longer being a coach? I know that was a little bit of a hurdle for me to get over when I was an AD and a head football coach at the same time, but then I took a job at a school where I was only the AD, and that was kind of tough for me for a couple of years.
Yeah, it was the same for me when I became the AD. I eventually became the head football coach there until Regis closed. So my last 3 years at Regis was the head football coach and the AD. And then when we moved into Xavier in '98, I became the activities director. There was no option for me to do both. It was going to be one or the other, and I chose the path of I love coaching. I coached high school football because I coached in college for at that point 13 or 14 years. But it was like I think long term the administrative world was going to be for me. Ironically enough, when we went to Xavier. And I couldn't be the head coach. The school did allow me to be the freshman football coach. So I had kind of the best of both worlds. I did that for 5 years, I think. And part of the philosophy was the new head football coach asked if I wanted to be an assistant. Our school board said that would be okay, but I couldn't be the head coach. And the more I thought about it, I was intrigued about it. Our stadium was going to be on campus, not off campus like it was at Regis. And the responsibilities just of game day, of having concessions and ticket takers, not renting a stadium, running it ourselves, just seemed too daunting to try to do that on game night and to devote coaching like we did playing at a public school stadium downtown when I was at Regis. So we looked around, and one of the things that I had kind of come up with, that all of the successful schools in our conference at that time, instead of throwing the freshman football coach to a graduate of college, 22, 23 years old, an inexperienced person, we looked at a couple of schools that were very successful. And one thing that we noticed was that their freshman coaches were experienced former head coaches or assistant coaches at the varsity level who just wanted to coach, teach the fundamentals, teach the kids to have a good time. So I did that with a couple of experienced coaches, and I really feel our football program got to be a powerhouse, not in the first 5, 7, 8 years, but in about year 8 or 9, they actually won a state championship. And I really believe that we helped lay that foundation, that why are schools, why are we putting our freshman coaches, the guys right out of high school, they should be assistants, even at the varsity level, but not running their own program within a program. And it's kind of a philosophy that we kept on later on, that we really want that first experience for our freshmen to be not only with a quality coach, and sometimes it had to be an inexperienced coach, but whenever possible, if we could put an experienced person in that role, really help the program.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. And again, great minds think alike. I guess that's something that I've shared, with ads before. Is that if you look at programs, whether it's football, basketball, that are consistent winners year after year, there's very often, I'm not going to say always, but very often, you've got that veteran coach at the middle school, and sometimes they've been there 25, 30 years, just cranking out fundamentally coached, well-coached kids. It's kind of funny. I got my final coaching fix at our school. We had a middle school football team and a high school team, varsity team, but we had started a 6th grade team, and the assistant coach had ended up leaving, and we had actually had a veteran coach in charge of it. So I went down there, and I was the assistant coach with those 6th graders, and I just took all the linemen, and we taught them stance, we taught them how to fire out, and we think that same thing happened. We planted those seeds. Very cool. Let's go ahead and take another quick break. Our guest again is Mike Winker, longtime coach, longtime AD in the state of Iowa, currently with the University of Iowa Sport and Recreation Management Program. That's what we're going to hear about next, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Scheduling, rosters, communication, results. How about facility management? Home Campus does all of these things and more, and it does it better and does it faster than the other platforms. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? That one alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com. Find out all the great things that they can do for your program. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Gipper is the modern marketing platform that makes it easy for you and your athletic department to look like you're Division I, look like you're professional without spending extra time or hiring extra staff. Gipper is used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college athletic programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Why is it easy? Because of the thousands of professionally designed templates that Gipper's created for you to promote your program, and you're going to promote them with your colors, your logos, your branding. Create, share, and schedule all of your social media content in one simple platform, and that platform is Gipper. Go to Gipper.com for more information. And as always, don't forget to mention the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Mike, you are still very much involved with education-based athletics, but now you're kind of training and leading, mentoring that next generation of leaders. Share with our listeners, how did you end up at the University of Iowa in your current position. And what are some things that you're really proud of about the program?
Well, thank you. I'm very blessed, Jake, that I mentioned earlier I became an AD when I was 27 or 28 years old on difficult circumstances, took advantage of that opportunity, I think, and was hired, as we mentioned, at Xavier. I was the activities director at Xavier the first 18 years. So with Regis, I was an AD for 23 years total. As I was approaching the age of 50, I kind of got to the point again where um, we had a nice retirement program, but nothing like the public schools. And I wasn't going to retire when I was 53 or 55. I was going to be working into my 60s, but felt I just couldn't be an AD anymore. And it's easy to say burnout or other factors, but I got to the point where I realized I just would not be good to be in this role anymore for myself or for the school. So I decided to make a change. Around that time, the state of Iowa made a change as well, where we talked about earlier, in order to be a coach, you had to be a teacher back in the 80s. Well, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the state of Iowa made the change where you didn't have to be a teacher anymore to be an athletics administrator. And the University of Iowa was looking for someone to head up the AD certificate so that sport and recreation management students could take the courses where they could then apply to our board of educational examiners and become an activities director. So, long story short, I've been in charge of that program the last 10 years. It's exciting, and it's really been exciting the last 3 or 4 years because the first 5 or 6 years, as you know, you graduate from the University of Iowa, you're 22, 23, you're not going to be hired to be an activities director. It's like a teacher in our College of Education. They're going to graduate and become teachers, not a principal, when they're 23 or 24. So the same thing here. What we had to do was find out what's that bridge going to be for our students. They're not going to be a teacher in the building, and those bridges included things like coaching 2 or 3 sports, becoming an official, getting your foot in the door as an assistant AD or maybe a junior high AD. Those turned out to be the avenues for our young people. What's been exciting is the last 3 or 4 years as our kids have gained those experiences, have they been out of our program developing professional experiences and opportunities. Some of them, a handful of them, are now getting hired as ADs in the state of Iowa. So it's pretty cool to see the growth of our program from 10 years ago of having nobody involved to fast forward now, where every year we're having former students that are being hired as leaders in our programs in our state.
Yeah, again, I hear that frequently in my area, and also nationwide. People, students, grad students, undergrads will email me about how can I become an AD? I'm currently a junior in a bachelor's program, and you talk about the experiences that hiring people are looking for, and it's great that you guys are providing those. From a curriculum standpoint, what's some of the coursework that you in the University of Iowa, of course, have created that are going to partner with some of the experiential programs that your students are participating in?
Yeah, and part of the program was in the process of being developed when I was hired, the very early stages. But for instance, we use some of the NIAAA curriculum. We use their textbook. The goal is for our students, when they complete the certificate, is to get the authorization from the state of Iowa. And the state of Iowa kind of set up, 6 of the main courses from the NIAAA has kind of the guide point. So one of the courses I teach, basically in simple terms for lay people, I say it's the roles and responsibilities of an AD. What do? You work with budgets, you schedule games, you hire coaches. That's one of the main courses. And then we have a course that's a semester long that's just a law class about all of the things that you and I and all ADs across the country deal with, from whether it's liability, whether it's First Amendment rights, an entire semester on that. Some of our courses, there's an ethics course that's not just directed to our certificate, but students use it in other areas. The thing I'm most proud of is we go above and beyond the state requirements. We require all of our students in order to get the certificate, they have to do a semester internship with the current AD. And that's really cool. I'm teaching about my experiences. We're using an IEEE book. We talk about some theories, but when our students are out in the real world for that semester working with an AD, they'll come back and you were right about this, or, oh, it's completely different there than what you talked about, because there's such a difference between smaller schools, urban schools, rural schools. It's been a win-win because the ADs that take on these kids, as you know, as most ADs listening know, we don't have time in the day for everything that we want to do. So having these students do an internship, they help with supervisions, they help with some projects that maybe an AD wants to institute but doesn't have the time to do it. So it's just been a real win-win, where I've hardly in 10 years, I've maybe had one or two ADs say, oh, I really don't want one right now because it's my first year or I don't have time. 98% of the time they're placed, and multiple times at multiple schools, our students have just done a great job excelling and learning and giving back to communities where they're doing this internship. I always joke with them, I don't want you going and sitting and watching the AD work. We want you helping them do their job. And that's kind of the kickstart for, I think that's why ADs want them back, because they're doing hands-on work for them, not watching them work.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're absolutely right. My school where I was at before I retired in Tallahassee, we were a private school, and we were very fortunate with interns that we got from Florida State University. As a matter of fact, we ended up, we posted a job. I'm trying to think, I think we called it game day operations, and we were just looking for some extra help. And we got this young man. He had graduated from Florida State, had his bachelor's degree in it wasn't sport management, but it was what they were offering at the time. Long story short, we hired him, and we had him painting fields. We had him setting up chairs and game day ops, breaking out. And he was just the hardest working kid I ever saw, ever. And we ended up each year, we were able to give him a few more hours, give him a few more dollars. And I think this is maybe, we hired him initially maybe 8 years ago now. For the last 3 years, he's been the assistant athletic director. He has his master's from Ohio University, has his CAA, but it was out of one of those intern experiences where he just really excelled. I'm sure you've got some success stories with your kids of a similar vein.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a trend. Part of the reason I left Xavier 10 years ago was I asked for an assistant AD, and I just didn't ask my last year. It had been a process of 3, 4, 5 years, but was told we just don't have the funding and whatnot. And, we can either complain or get grumpy in our situation, or decide, well, maybe that's the writing on the wall for need to leave. Since I've left, it's been a trend in the state of Iowa at the 4A, 5A schools, hiring assistant ADs. A big part of it has been our bridge. A lot of the assistant AD jobs basically are event operations, assisting with or taking on the non-varsity sports, the freshman, sophomore, JV, and supervising those so that the AD can go to the varsity events, but also work on, things that we've talked about, leadership, mentoring, hiring. So that, I think in the state of Iowa, the assistant AD position, different in every district, but I would say by and large, 75-80% of the responsibilities are helping with event supervision. When I started as an AD, I worked 1 or 2 nights a week, but as we added boys and girls bowling and boys and girls soccer at the state of Iowa, my average nights went from, when I started, from 1 or 2 nights a week to at least 3 or 4 every other weekend. And that would led to part of the burnout, that I can't do some of the leadership things that we want to do, some of the facility updates that we want to do by working, 7, 8 hours, 4 nights a week on top of your office operations component of it. So yeah, in a long-winded way, a big part of the opportunities are for our young, energetic people that you want to get your foot in the door, be an assistant AD, junior high AD, and help out with event supervision. That's been the bridge that we've noticed.
Yeah, again, the job has changed so much from when you and I were in high school. I'm guessing when you were in high school, I know it was when I was in high school, there was no boys and girls soccer. There was no bowling. There was no lacrosse. And it's great that there's so many other opportunities for kids to participate in. But for that AD, there's a lot more work involved. That many more kids, parents, buses, you name it. Mike, we're going to do this at the end of the show, but I want to do it now. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, or maybe find out more about the Iowa program, what's the best way that they can get a hold of Mike Winker?
Yeah, two ways. One, just Google the University of Iowa Sport and Recreation Management Program. And if you do that, you'll see all of the areas that we're involved in. You would click on the activities director certificate to find the information, obviously related to AD work. You can also email me at michael-winker@uiowa.edu. I have people reaching out all of the time. Cool thing about our program too, Jake, is the Sport and Recreation Management Program, students can take and get their degree all online in our classes. And we were doing that pre-COVID. When COVID hit, we were very happy that we had it that way because everybody else was scrambling to get their classes on Zoom or online, but can earn a degree that way, including the AD certificate. So for the undergrad. So yeah, my email, or just Google our website and reach out.
All right. Well, Mike Winker, University of Iowa Sport Management. We're going to take another quick break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Tables and Video Boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. You've heard me say before, probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Table. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile. Their customer service, just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Booster Hub, the #1 Booster Club software program. How about things like sponsorship payments, meal fees, concession sales? It all flows through Booster Hub's secure system. Volunteer signups, volunteer changes, you know they're going to happen. Nothing falls through the cracks. Everything stays secure and strong, and your boosters and your community stay engaged. Go to boosterhub.com. Give your boosters the platform they need. Give them the platform they deserve, and that's boosterhub.com. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but guess what? My assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. And while they were earning their degree, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. And we want to say thanks to Hometown. You probably know Hometown from Hometown Ticketing, but it's a lot more than that. Their resources include things like, digital ticketing, of course. They're still the #1 digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. But how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising? The list just goes on and on. Whether you're an athletic director, a principal, even a head coach, Hometown is going to show you how to save time. It's going to show you how to raise more money, and they're going to show you how to bring your entire community together. That's hometown.com. And remember, tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Mike, you and I were talking during the break, and you mentioned that one of your goals is to kind of help your students beat the average. You know, we all know that the life span of an AD is, it's not as long as it should be. I think we feel if we can get them through that first year or so, they've got a chance for success. What are some things that you do as a leader that you feel the Iowa program does to help your students have that chance of beating the average?
Yeah, and that, Jake, you're exactly right. And that's one of my main goals is that the University of Iowa, we really want to give back to our state, want to have students that graduate, whether it's in education or activities or any area, that give back in a positive way. Long term, we want them to stay in the state of Iowa. And the average AD in the state of Iowa goes 3 years and then they get out of it. They either go back to the classroom or get out of education completely. And that average is probably a little bit high because you still have a few people that do it 15 and 20 years. So really, like you said, a lot of ADs do it a year or two and they throw up their hands and get out of it. So I try to be honest and transparent and tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly about the job as an activities director. And along with our internships of them getting out there and when they're supervising games, they see upset parents. They see situations that aren't the most positive examples of sportsmanship and whatnot. So trying to be proactive, teaching them that they want to be proactive, and a big part of being an activities director is educating your community, your parents, your students, your coaches, creating a culture that's positive so that the AD wants to go to work every day and the kids want to go to their activities. So sometimes it's being brutally honest about some of the negative situations that's going on, not just in the high school athletics, but in the sports world as in general. We have a lot of um, negative role models, a lot of negative situations. So really try to grind through the negatives and teach how we can turn those into positive life learning experiences that make society better. It it sounds great, tougher to do, and I guess it's one of my bigger goals that really don't know how much success we're having in it. It's measurable in terms of ADs getting hired and how long they go, but other than that, plan for the worst, hope for the best, as they say.
Right. No, and you're absolutely right. And I think a caveat to that, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, is that talking about parents, okay, most parents, I'd say the majority of parents, they get it, okay, and they're supportive or at least they're not antagonistic. But you end up spending an inordinate amount of time, maybe it is 90% of your time, with that small group of parents that are just, wearing you out, complaining about this and that. And I try to share with, young ADs and people that are entering the field, hey, this is the job. Okay. And, most of your coaches, most of your parents, they're going to love you. Okay. They're going to support you, but be prepared for that group that doesn't. Don't let them get you down. I think there's two areas, that I would stress, and there's a ton. One is, engage those parents, build that culture, try to find ways that you can partner with them, but make sure it's a role that's helping the entire department. And the other is to communicate frequently with your principal, your head of school, and let them know the scope and the depth of your job, that you're there night after night, turning off the lights, last one out of the gym, all those cliches. Make sure that your principal has your back. What do you think about those two ideas?
Well, no, and that's great. I think, and I tell my students this all the time, that your relationship with your direct supervisor is huge. And to be communicating the good, the bad, and the ugly, but keeping them posted that, I've got a group of maybe basketball parents that are frustrated about the coach. I'm hearing about it. Just wanted to let you know and let them know what you're doing proactively to try to make that situation better so that the first time they hear about something isn't from that bad parent in that group, that they've already heard something about it. So whether it's venting, informing, making sure that we're communicating and making sure, again, that philosophically you and your principal or superintendent, whoever that your direct report is, that you're on the same page. And kind of joke to people, I had in my 28 years of secondary education, I worked for four principals, average of 7 years apiece. And three of them, I think we had the same philosophy. We were going in the same direction. And when I had some differences with another one, that just made life difficult. And it doesn't mean I was right and they were wrong or vice versa, but we just were not in alignment on how we're going to handle negative situations, how we're going to handle any situation, really. We just were not aligned that way. And that doesn't make either one of us bad, but it's not good for a positive work environment either way.
No, you're absolutely right. And I was very fortunate. I was at three schools here in Florida as an AD, they all had, good success on the field, and it was all good. Two of my heads were just outstanding. Okay, one of them said, talking about parents going over the AD's head and all that. Yeah, he said, we don't have time for that foolishness. Now I had to do my job as an AD and keep those challenges off his desk, but I had one. He always backed me up, but I always had to come to his office with the parent, like I was being called to the office, and explain why we did X, Y, and Z. And he would literally just sit there. He wouldn't support me verbally. We had already had the conversation, but it was just the most annoying thing I had to experience. So you're right. Having that relationship with your boss is just huge.
And that's the one thing I've got. I've had a number of students this week that have interviewed for assistant AD positions, like we talked about earlier. And I mentioned to them, they're eager, they want to get a job. But at some point in time during that interview, when they ask you, what questions do you have? It's so important that you turn that interview around, not as another interview, but, you know, asking about philosophical situations, a leadership style, making sure that you'll be compatible and can be on the same page moving forward. So exactly what we're talking about here. But it's important that you find out the culture of leadership in that building and how you will be treated and what trust you will have to do your job and what maybe we're talking about micromanaging a little bit. That was part of the issues with one of my principals is let me do my job. And when I make a mistake, I'll own up to it or you let me know. But otherwise, let me do the job that you've hired me to do.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's such a great question. I eventually, as I got smarter as an AD, I would ask during that interview, I would ask the head, what's the relationship with the board? Do they let you lead the school or are they micromanaging you? And it was just that great conversation starter, like number one, to find out where the board is. And then number two, if I felt I needed to, how do your department heads feel? Do they feel they have the freedom to lead the program? So great stuff. Okay. Mike, this has been cool reconnecting with you, finding out a little bit more about your journey and continued journey in athletics, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. We're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new AD on their first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's take that break, and when we come back, we're going to see what Mike Winker puts in his new athletic director toolbox. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for student athletes, for coaches. We even used it for parents. And here's the cool thing. The information that came back, almost always over the top positive. You're talking 98%. We still got to hear from our squeaky wheel parents, but the surveys allowed us to find out their concerns, usually address them before they turned into something big. But getting back to that positive data, incredibly valuable, especially when you were visiting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, sometimes even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey just for you. It's going to let you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. And as always, don't forget to mention you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Mike Winker. He's with the University of Iowa's Sport and Recreation Management Program. Tremendous background as a leader, as a coach, as an athletic director. But right now, I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new AD on their first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 tools in the toolbox. So, Mike, what 3 tools are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, mine are going to be organization, number 2, communication, and number 3, availability/transparency. You want me to talk about each?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Well, I mentioned I got thrown into the AD world my first 5 years at Regis and found out very quick that there were some people, because I was the fourth or fifth choice, nobody wanted it. Former teachers, coaches, they were going to keep an eye on me to see how I did being thrown into this situation, and learned real quick you need to take care of the little things or your credibility erodes. I had dreams of how I wanted to create a culture, the leadership ideas that I had. You can't get any of those, and probably not in your first couple of years until you prove and run a program with the little details, being organized, making sure that officials show up for games, as we talked about earlier, making sure that there's a bus scheduled for the JV basketball game on a Saturday. And I learned some of it by seeing our previous AD struggle a little bit, juggling a bunch of jobs and people kind of whining and moaning about some of the organizational things. And I just felt in order for me to have credibility, I had to take care of the management part, even though that's not the most fun part, as we know. And on top of that, with organization, making sure that we're communicating with all parties, all stakeholders. I used to mention to our coaches, once email came into being, it's not politically correct, but kill your constituents with communication. Send out weekly schedules for practices so they're not calling you or me wondering what's going on. And most parents now with their kids, they grow up with that in all of the sports that they have as kids, whether it's youth soccer, baseball, whatever, they're getting emails that's very organized. It might be a for-profit organization. We're going to get compared to that. And if we want to keep kids in education-based activities, we have to communicate proactively and let parents and athletes, students know what's going on. So organization and communication before you can get to those transformational types of things that you want to do. One example I'll give of the communication part, when I was the football coach, the AD, and I decided we're going to make a locker room change, and we were going to move the baseball equipment to a different area away from the football. I did that, had it done over the summertime. Baseball coach was very upset, not because he loved the new situation, because he didn't know about it, just wasn't involved in it. And even though I made a good decision, it's something I never forgot in those first 5 years, that be transparent, let people know what you're doing, so that even if you're not going to change what you're doing, they can have a say in it or express an opinion. So I think that was huge. And then finally, availability. I didn't do a very good job as a young AD. I'm telling you about, Jake, all of my mistakes, but I think just like coaching or athletics, the good ones learn from their mistakes and don't repeat them. And just being available. I think when I was still a football coach and an AD, I'd hire a softball coach, throw him the keys to the equipment shed and say, good luck. And didn't do much in terms of being proactive with helping those young coaches, putting them in a situation to be successful. But I learned when I became a full-time activities director, the time and effort that I put into those young new coaches, meeting with them maybe every day. And then the next year, maybe it's once a week. And by year 3, come see me if it's not an evaluation, when you need something or have questions. But I just learned by investing that time in young, inexperienced coaches paid off down the end, instead of having to hire a new coach in that same sport every year or two. So organization, communication, which I think leads to the credibility, leads to you doing those big things that you want to do transformationally, and then just being available, and especially to your coaches, but making sure that parents, students know that your office is open as well.
Boy, you probably saw me scribbling all that down. Great, great tools. And I always say that no matter where, a certain contributor's tool ends up, that we say it's the top 20 tools for success. If it's number 20 or number 1, they're all important. Organization and communication frequently are in our top 3, almost always top 4 tools that are recommended, because they are so valuable. But the other 2 that you mentioned, which are also in the top 20, being available, it's part of being that servant leader, and the transparency, building that trust. It's just so critical in the success of a program. Thanks so much for sharing. One more time, Mike, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, and listeners, I think you got a great resource here. what's the best way that they can connect with Mike Winker?
Yeah, first of all, my email, michael-winker at uiowa.edu, or just Google the University of Iowa Sport and Recreation Management on our website. And my email is there, of course, as well. So two great ways to reach out, and looking forward to visiting with anybody that would contact me, Jake.
Well, thanks again for coming on. We are definitely going to bring you back for another episode to visit with you and get an update. All the best as you wrap up spring classes and final exams, and hope you have a great summer.
Well, it's been a joy and an honor to be on your show. You got a great reputation, a great product, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh, absolutely. Right back at you. For our listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.